Well, hello there, Berger Bruski here, and today we're gonna go over the interesting mechanic that was changed in Ultimatum League, that is low life, and how you can utilize low life with Petrified Blood on the Champion Ascendancy. So let's start talking about low life and how it was changed in the Ultimatum League. Now, low life is a condition that applies when you are at 50% HP or lower, and it used to be 30% HP or lower, but this was changed in Ultimatum, and the threshold for low life is now 50%. Now, the thing is, when you have low life on your character, certain buffs can be applied to you by having certain uniques or certain things in the skill tree. And the thing that I want to talk about today is using the Petrified Blood aura. Now, Petrified Blood is a new aura that was introduced in Ultimatum League as well, which is basically a form of mitigation mechanic where you actually remove the top 50% of your health pool and then have a mitigation mechanic where you take a hit, but the entire hit is not taken straight away, and a portion of the hit will be taken later as a form of a degen. Now, I will not go over all the mechanics of the Petrified Blood aura, but I will link to a video in the description instead that talks about the Petrified Blood aura extensively so you can learn more how it works. The thing that I want to talk about is using the Petrified Blood aura on, for example, the Champion Ascendancy. So the way that it works is that it removes the top 50% of our health pool, so we can only use the bottom 50% unless you use a health flask, which we don't really care about. Now, if we can actually be on the bottom 50% of our health pool and have 50% life, aka we are low life at that point, we can then reserve the top portion of our health pool with other auras, so we can actually enable more auras on our character overall in certain and specific cases that we're going to go over here in this video. And with the use of this, we can enable certain low life aura buffs on our character. Now, for different characters, this can mean different things. For example, if you're a spellcaster, you can have the Pain Attunement skill point in the skill tree, which gives you 30% more spell damage, which is huge. And if you're, for example, an attack build, you can use things like Bloodthirst as a support gem. But one of the more interesting mechanics that I've been able to find is on the Champion and the Champion Ascendancy node, First to Strike, Last to Fall. Now, what First to Strike Last to Fall does is that it gives us permanently intimidate enemies that are on full life when we hit them, and intimidated enemies take 10% increased attack damage, so this is pretty good for attack-based builds. And second line, gain adrenaline for 20 seconds when you reach low life if you do not have adrenaline already. And then recover 25% of life when you gain adrenaline, and remove all ailments and burning when you gain adrenaline as well. Now, the most important thing here that we're looking at is the gain adrenaline for 20 seconds when you reach low life if you do not already have adrenaline. And adrenaline grants us 100% increased damage, 25% increased attack, cost and movement speed, and also 10% additional physical damage reduction. So I was looking at this and I was like, what if there's a way where we can just gain adrenaline all the time? And there is actually a certain way that we can do that pretty easily. So Petrified Blood caps our HP at 50%, so that means that we always have low life when we have Petrified Blood enabled. Now, it doesn't show like that because I just load in my character, so it loads up to my full HP where my HP reserve is. But normally I would be at 50% HP at all times, so I'm always at low life when I have Petrified Blood, right? When I'm mapping or doing anything else than just standing in my hideouts. But that doesn't give us adrenaline all the time. I just run around with 50% HP, I'm always on low life, and adrenaline is only triggered when I get low life, like the initial hit that I take or whatever that triggers me down to low life, that's when I gain adrenaline. So how am I gonna make this work on the Champion? Like how am I gonna fix this? Well, the fix is actually pretty easy. As you can see here, when I use something that removes a portion of my life, I have my reserved life pool, which is here, and then I have my Petrified Blood, making me so I cannot go any higher than 50% unless I use a life flask. So now, because I'm at, like, let's say 70% HP, it won't actually go up. and it won't go up until I go below 50%, and then will go up to 50% if I have any life regen, or I use a life flask. So right now, if I keep using Corrupting Fever here on this character, I will remove a portion of my life, and as soon as I go below 50% and I trigger low life, I will gain adrenaline. So now I have adrenaline, I have 100% increased damage, 25% attack, cost and movement speed, and 10% physical damage reduction. And now my regen is capping me at 50% life right here. You can see if I use another skill, I will go up 50%, but that once again does not trigger adrenaline. If I'm already at low life, if I take any form of damage, I'm still just on low life. So the easy way to fix this is by double-clicking Petrified Blood in order to remove the aura from my character. So I then regen above low life, activating it again, and then forcing my life down below low life again, and adrenaline is once again triggered. And I've been toying around with this character. For example, I've been having a lot of fun with this mechanic. And the reason why this is so cool on the champion is because this can be applied to so many builds. Here I have a Reap and Exsanguinate champion build, which is not something you often see on champion builds like a Spellcaster, but I'm playing Spellcaster with Fort Strike Last of Fall, and I'm also playing Fortitude and gaining Perma Fortify, so I can be really tanky. And then I also have Inspirational later on for some huge damage buffs and free mana restoration or life restoration of the banner skills. That's going to give me some nice juicy damage as well. And I'm playing with Pain Attunement. 30% more spell damage when on low life gives my Reap and my Exsanguinate a huge damage buff. So it's actually possible to play like Spellcaster or anything like that on the champion now and actually make it worth your while because of the adrenaline buff. So adrenaline gives me a lot more movement speed, and my character can be super zoomy, and I can deal loads of damage because of Pain Attunement. And also because of the fact that I trigger adrenaline by double tapping Petrified Blood and forcing my life down, I can actually completely drop my life flask. I no longer care about life flask. The only thing that a life flask would do for me is that it would actually put me above 50% life with how Petrified Blood works, but I don't really care about that. And yeah, you could use the life flask to trigger above low life and then go below low life again in order to trigger adrenaline, but I'd rather get another flask for more damage. I'd rather have, instead of a life flask here, I'd rather get like a silver flask for Onslaught, which I already have, but anything like that, or a basalt for more physical damage reduction, so I'm tankier. So instead of having a life flask to trigger this thing, I'll just double tap Petrified Blood and I'll get another flask for more damage or more defense. And with that sense, you can actually make your character a lot stronger. That on top of, using the adrenaline buff is actually so much fun, and I'm having an absolute blast with this. So let's quickly go over some instances of how low life buffs can actually be applied to our champion build if we play around with Petrified Blood. Now, as I told you, I had a Reap Exsanguinate build where I use Pain Attunement, for example, which gives me a lot more spell damage. As you can see, it's a huge damage boost because 30% more means just flat out like 30% more damage overall if you're using spells. And also, for example, if I want to be really tanky on this character, I can use, for example, the Daresa's Courage Baroque Round Shield. And now what this does is that 30% chance to block spell damage while on low life. So if I'm on low life, I gain a 30% more chance to block spell damage on a character we already have block on. And then the Daresa's Courage Shield also gives me 20% chance to block spells if you blocked an attack recently, and 20% chance to block attacks if you blocked a spell recently. So with this shield, my block is around 56 and 55, which is pretty high. And that means that most of the time I'm going to block attacks and I'm going to block spells. And that basically gives me max block on a champion where I've invested almost nothing into block. I will have Sanctuary, and that's it. I will have Sanctuary on this character. And then the Daresa's Courage Shield gives me so much spell block and normal chance to block on top of that, And then with the chance to block spells, if you've blocked an attack or spell recently, or block attacks, gives me so much more that I actually hit like the maximum block chance on this character. So not only, for example, on a spellcaster do I have Fortify, which makes my character super tanky. I have Inspirational, which gives me a lot of damage from all my buffs and also gives me a free banner. Gives me First to Strike, Last to Fall, so I can have perma adrenaline on my character. But I can also, for example, gain max block, and I can become super tanky. So at around 7k life for endgame without having any insane gear, and having max block, and having Fortify, this character will be an absolute beast while also being able to map very efficiently because of the fact that I have such a high movement speed modifier from having a Quicksilver Flask and having, you know, like a Silver Flask for Onslaught, while also having Adrenaline, so I gain all this movement speed and all this cast speed from all these different things, so I can actually zoom through maps really fast. So now let's have a look at a attack-based character, for example, and how to use the same setup for an attack-based character. Now, I have here my Champion Claw Cyclone build, which has been around for quite a long time, and I have now applied the low life mechanics to this build instead. And what does this grant me? How do I benefit from this? And what are the changes to Ascendancy, for example, and all that stuff? We're going to go over that really quickly here. So I now have First Strike, Last Fall once again for the Adrenaline buff, and you can see here that the Adrenaline buff is quite a massive damage increase because of how it works, you know, attack speed, damage, etc. And I also have changed up my skill tree a little bit, and I also changed up my auras because, as I said, if you can actually reserve a little bit of your life pool, you can instead try to squeeze in more auras overall, or balance out your auras a lot better overall for your character to maybe have better defenses or more damage. Now, this character is now low life, so you know I have 5.4k life. We will reserve a portion of that, but still we will only count 50% of the total life. So 5.4 becomes 2.7, which may sound low, but you know, the Petrified Blood mechanics is a mitigation mechanic, so it's not as bad as it sounds, and the character will still be very tanky. And one of the major changes on the Champion Cyclone Claw build, for example, is the fact that Adrenaline gives us such a movement speed boost as well, so we're going to be faster for map clearing. And with me changing the Ascendancy nodes, Inspirational is a massive damage buff. And also, we can now, instead of having Awakened Melee Fist in order to intimidate, we now always intimidate anyway through the use of First to Strike, Last to Fall. Your hits permanently intimidate enemies that are on full life. So we don't, for example, need a very expensive gem in the game, Awakened Melee Fist, which can usually be like 3 to 4 Exiles every league, but instead we swap that out for Bloodthirst. So Bloodthirst, supported attacks deal added physical damage with weapons equal to 2% of maximum life while on low life. And supported skills deal 20% increased damage while on low life, and supported attacks deal 90% more damage. So Bloodthirst is a new support gem that can be applied when using low life on your character, and Bloodthirst was actually more of a DPS increase than Awakened Melee Fist was anyway, and it's so much cheaper. And the funny interaction with this is that, as it says in the skill gem, the damage is also based on our maximum life. So adding more life on our character actually equals more DPS. And it's a really funny mechanic that you do this. So as you can see here, 10,052 and increasing 5% maximum life will give me 46,000 DPS. So more life equals more damage. And that's why you just want to get as much life on this character as possible overall, because of defenses, you know, and more life is always better. But it also increases our damage. And a funny thing, if you look at my Cyclone Claw Champion POB here, is that this new version with low life, Petrified Blood, and the new Ascendancy skill tree, this is at around 10 million DPS. If I go and look at the old version, it has around 6.7 million DPS. And it is the exact same build, it is the exact same gear, it is the exact same skill tree. The only change that I've done is that I go inspirational, first to strike, last to fall, instead of having Worthy Foe and Conqueror. I changed up my auras, and I instead gain a massive damage buff because of going low life. Alright, so now you learned a lot more about the low life and the Petrified Blood mechanics and how they work together and how they can work separately as well, I guess. And, well, I mean, like, there's so many areas where you can apply low life and gain different buffs from. Maybe other ascendancies, maybe other unique items, maybe other mechanics overall. I just wanted to go over these really quickly to show you that how I found these out to be, and how interesting I find these as well, and how much fun I've been having with them. I'm currently leveling the Reap Exsanguinate Champion on stream. I've been having a blast with it. It's super much fun. And my Claw Cyclone Champion build, which has been kind of popular for a couple of leagues now, has also seen a massive damage buff from going to this low life and changing the ascendancy points, like a 30% damage buff overall. So I'm really looking forward to implementing that into that build and seeing people toy around with that as well. Okay, so listen up really quickly. I do not want you to smash the subscription button anymore, because I've gone to anger management class now, so I want you to gently give it like a little touch, you know, a little breeze basically, but still, like, you know, if you want to be an MVP, go ahead and, hey, fuck it, man. Annihilate the subscription button here on YouTube. Smash, 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 okay? Destroy that shit. And then go over to twitch.tv/BurgerBrush, drop a follow, come in, watch me play Path of Exile and other games, hang out, become my best friend. We're gonna go get ice cream together, we're gonna have picnics together, we're gonna make sweet love, and we're gonna scratch the last part, and I'll see you around.